Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of r/AskReddit. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe so you will never miss a video. So let's get started. Reddit, when did you cheat something and get away with it? I hired some, truly random, guy at a pub to write to my final exam paper for a media studies class, because I had too many advanced courses to study for. Not only did he not fuck it up, but he earned such flawless marks, unlike me, that the professor made a special note of its quality, brilliant work. This was unlike anything you've ever written before. Unlike anything you've ever written before. Are you saying I didn't write this, and that I hired someone I met at a pub and paid him money to do it because I totally didn't do that? A valuable lesson in subcontracting. In university, we had an exam that was online, and during the exam, we weren't allowed to have any other tabs open. I had a study sheet that I created on Word beforehand, and I copied the whole document and pasted it into one of the short answer boxes. My professor walked around the lab to make sure no one was cheating, so every time he walked by, I scrolled up to the top where the multiple choice questions were, and when he left, I would search for the answers in the little short answer text box. That's so clever. I've never thought about it before. Would you try it again if the opportunity came? I did this just last week XD. I was the top of my class in chemistry, but something was wrong with my brain on our fourth exam, couldn't think to save my life. I was so frustrated that I crumpled my test and threw it in the trash at the end of the hour. Next class, the teacher asked me to stay behind, apologized for losing my exam, and averaged my previous exam scores. I feel bad, but she saved my ass. I have submitted corrupted Word documents and gotten this for them. I once did the reverse of this. I couldn't afford Word, so my actually written paper was saved as .rtf. When my professor emailed me that she couldn't open in .rtf, I was like .wtf, but I printed and drove a hard copy over from across town within the hour. I had a science class that I was supposed to do something for. I can't remember what it was, but I know I was too lazy to do it. It was a class that didn't matter, and I knew the worst that could happen was I'd get a 0 for it, pulling my average down a bit. Somehow he gave me full marks for my laziness. In high school government class we had a final exam I really wasn't prepared for. The day of, I wore ripped jeans and wrote notes on my thighs in spots I could see by just pulling on a hole a little bit. In high school, I had a pair of jeans that I doodled on with ballpoint pen and markers. By the end of the year, I had a whole mural going down both legs. It was also easy enough to incorporate certain test answers into the mural. Ha ha ha. We wore uniforms and I pulled my skirt up a little where I had notes. Others snuck notes and hid them on the back of their ties. I've told this story before. I started college in the early 2000s, had to drop out, and went back near the end of that decade. A lot changed in those intervening years, including sites like Turnitin not existing my first go-around. I had an essay I got an A on my first start at college, and I still had it on a floppy disk. When I returned years later I had another course that had an essay due. I wasn't feeling doing it, but I remembered this old essay I had from before, and I knew that Turnitin didn't exist then. I only turned in a paper copy that time, so there was no online presence of it nor would it get flagged as unoriginal. So I got my disk converter out, got that old essay out, changed the date/course number, and turned it in on Turnitin for this other course, and as I knew would happen it wasn't flagged. I also got an A on that paper too. Yeah, you can't do things like that now. Parking garage hack with a cookie sheet on the sensor. Park and take your cookie sheet. When you're walking back, slap that mofo on the sensor and get a new ticket. Then leave. Saves hundreds in Chicago. It thinks the sheet is a wheel and spits a new ticket. Wait, where is the sensor? I always thought the sensor is embedded into the floor and triggered by vehicle's weight. Having worked at a parking garage recently, 2016, can confirm this works. We kept a cookie sheet, it was heavy though, not only aluminum, to put over the sensor on the ground when we needed to raise the gate. Worked a shift at another garage and they had a heavy metal square type thing they used, theirs seemed more official than ours. So there was this place called Discovery Zone when I was a kid. Usually had birthday parties there as it was a mix of a jungle gym with slides and tunnels along with an arcade. Think Chuck E. Cheese with a big playground. Like most places that had arcades for kids, you earned tickets and could cash them in for prizes. but like all these places, the good prizes cost a shitload of tickets. My parents, being sensible, wouldn't give me unlimited money to play the games, so I was only able to get a few hundred tickets from some of the easier ones, not enough for anything good. I couldn't decide what I wanted, or if I was going to be able to play more before spending the tickets, but I didn't want to carry them around with me. They had a system that one of the staff counts your tickets, writes the number on the back of a ticket and signs it so you only have one ticket to carry. I really wanted one of the big stuffed animals because they had all the good Looney Tunes characters. My brain went to work. I figured out that I could write whatever number of tickets I wanted on the back of another ticket, fake the signature and cash it in. Problem was my writing wasn't good enough to copy someone else's, so I brought one of my friends in on it. I explained the plan to him, and he gets to work writing the ticket. To my dismay, the number of tickets he puts down is in the tens of thousands. I thought for sure it was way too much to be believable, but his argument was that it has to be a large amount for us to both get something good, and we won't be able to use the trick too many times. I agreed and figured we didn't have much to lose. We waited until the staff member whose signature we forged went on break, and got to the counter while they were away. The staff member looked at our ticket, gave us a good up and down, shrugged and asked us what we wanted. We made away with a giant Tasmanian devil, Marvin the Martian, and Sylvester the cat, as well as a bunch of smaller items to use up the excess tickets. Our cover story for how we earned so many tickets without any money from our parents is that we found a bunch of the game tokens in the ball pit and used them to earn the tickets. To add icing to the cake, in the back corner of this place there was a net high up with more of the Sylvester the cats on it. We used our Sylvester the cat to knock another one off. He took the Marvin the Martian and one of the Sylvesters, I took the other and the Tasmanian devil. Our parents never really pressed us on it, but one of our classmates was always incredibly suspicious of our story. Over 2 decades later, and I still have those stuffies. High school gym class. Had to run the timed mile. I am not fit nor athletic. We had 2 days of exercise challenges for a grade, day 1 being push-ups, sit UPS etc., second day was the mile. I was absent the first day when my teacher had paired the class up into partners that would help each other keep track of stats etc. Being an odd number of students, when I returned the next day the only person left to be my partner was my old, rude gym teacher. We head out to the track to run the mile, teacher says one partner from each group go first, when you are done we will have the second group go. The first group went and I just stood behind the teacher. The second group went and I did the same. Then I waited until she looked to her right, and I came up from her left, breathing heavy, acting exhausted. I gave her my time, perfectly happy with my shitty time and not even running a step. In high school chemistry we had to memorize some polyatomic ions, which was just tedious, because each had a different charge that I keep getting mixed up. On the final exam, we could use the periodic table he gave us from the start of the year as long as there are no notes on it, which he quickly checked. The page was a grainy photocopy, and every student had specks of dirt or eraser bits on their sheets. On the main atoms for each of the ions I penciled in tiny dots to tell me the charge for that ion. I got away with it, and it probably got me 2 questions on a 50-question test. Now they give us a sheet with all the polyatomic ions. Truly, and I'm sure you agree with this, as you get further into chemistry the polyatomic ions and their charges just become a part of you with how often they get used. My senior religion class had quizzes every week. I wrote down answers in eraser on the desk. It could only be seen from a certain angle and could be wiped away quickly. I cheated almost every quiz and never got caught. I found one time right before a test I saw the entire notes page drawn in pencil eraser. I wouldn't have said anything except for I knew that if I didn't say something I would get in trouble. We ended up taking 20 minutes to evenly erase the whole table so nothing would be visible. My last paper that I had to turn in for my bachelor's was a group paper. We were writing the paper on a Google Doc, and I was the last one to submit my portion. As I was reading the paper, preparing to begin typing, I realized that one of my group mates had written what was supposed to be my part, and had written it better than I did. So I just left it. I didn't tell the group what happened, and just submitted the paper. We got an A, the degree's on my wall. I have a feeling they know, unless you weren't that behind on submitting it. My wife has done others' parts in group projects when they wait till the last day. She never wants to risk failing because of them, and just does it herself. She has had 1 or 2 folks take advantage of that though, unsurprisingly. Lazy group members are the worst. I hated writing most of the paper because parts would be blank the night it's due. In high school, around 30 years ago, I and the rest of the student council were counting up the votes for the new members, including the votes for the new president. I didn't like one of the candidates for president, a dumb jock, and the other candidate was one of my friends. The guy I didn't like was clearly winning, so I counted their votes as votes for my friend as the principal and vice principal observed. I didn't want it to be obvious, so I only changed a few votes at a time. My friend won by a small margin, so I didn't feel too badly. Later on I found out that everyone who was counting the votes was doing the exact same thing. When I was in Stugo, the staff involved pretended like the votes mattered and just picked who they wanted to. Sometimes their picks still sucked and I ended up doing multiple jobs in one term, but mostly, I think it was a good idea. This one isn't necessarily cheating, but nobody really knows that you're allowed to use the TI-84 stats calculator for the math portion of the SAT. I was about to take the SAT for the second time and didn't study at all, but I brought in my brother's old TI-84. I remember going in there with that absolute brick and thinking there's no way they'll let me use this, but they did. This calculator literally gives you the answers for a bunch of questions if you know how to use its functions, and it brought my math score up by at least 80 points. The more you know. I hope you're getting a law degree. I opted to take an online driving course rather than get points on my license for a speeding ticket. I took the final exam using a bootable Red Hat Linux Live CD, and used whatever default browser came with that OS. The online test was such that the controls weren't nearly as locked down as with a Windows-based browser, so I was able to copy and paste text from the course to a text editor and then search it while taking the exam. Mate. You have to use Linux normally. Every time I had to write a book report in high school, I wrote it on the same book that I never fully read. Used that book at least 4 times. Oh, that reminds me of when I submitted the same paper twice. I think I got away with it because one teacher was old school and wanted paper copies? Because I definitely remember some classes even back then running it through the plagiarism programs. I failed my maths GCSE back in school, so I had to retake it in college, and I was set in a class who were pretty good at it. However, I had no effing clue what was going on. It was until COVID hit hard in our area and we had to go to lockdown. Our classes were held on a website where your work was monitored by the teacher. It wasn't like Zoom or Microsoft Teams, as we had no meetings. It was just here's the work, do it, and hand it back in digitally. They don't know whether we use calculators or not. And I took that matter into my own hands. Every single question I got right due to the trusty calculator. The teacher didn't notice, as I did get the majority of my questions right at the campus. In the end, I passed with the highest grade, but I never told anyone as I was ashamed of what I did. But now it's in the past, I can laugh at it and just say, hey, I passed it with flying colors. Senior year of high school, English class. Had a 3-page essay due that neither me nor my 2 friends had even started. Teacher starts collecting them. I walk up to her and say that I did it, but forgot it at home on my printer, and if there was any possible way I could bring it to her tomorrow morning. Teacher says sure, that's fine. Go home that night and slam out the entire thing, and hand it in the next day with no late penalty. In college I worked for campus police as unarmed security, and while I was assigned to the library, I realized that the traffic officers couldn't possibly enforce 30-minute short-term parking spots littered across campus, as they simply didn't have the manpower to check them multiple times a day. Anyone could park in these spots, so for the last year of college I unregistered my car with the school and didn't buy a parking pass, but got the best parking on campus. Yes, I did this. Till I was found out. Then they withheld my transcripts for $1,600 in parking fees. In high school I turned in one of my girlfriend's research papers. She was older and had already taken the class. I changed maybe 10 words and put my name on it, somehow got a better grade than she did. Acting like I know what I'm doing at my job and continuing to get promotions. Look up imposter syndrome. This sort of acting has made a dude that knew nothing about alcohol, wine specifically, a brand ambassador for a wine company. Dude just decided to say fuck it, go in and wing it, and he got the job that paid very decently. Not that I'm in total favor of this type of acting, but good job, smiley face. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.